Thanks for joining me for another Airbrush Asylum video. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about whether or not it's worth spending the big dollars on a name brand airbrush, or can you just buy a cheap airbrush and do the same thing. All that coming up right now. So I've just gone ahead and picked 3 airbrushes, 2 from the Iwata family and 1 no-name cheap brand to showcase. So let's start right at the top. The Iwata CMC Plus Micron. Now I'm just going to give you a basic price for today in Australian dollars. Obviously these prices are going to vary depending on where you purchase these from, but this one here is approximately 750 Australian dollars. Then moving on to the Eclipse. So this is the HPCS Iwata Eclipse. This one's around the 240 to 250 Australian dollars. And then we have the no-name, just the real cheap airbrush that you've probably seen a lot on Amazon. I've also done a few videos on it. And this one's between 20 to 30 Australian dollars. So focusing on the most expensive model to start with, which is the Micron. So this airbrush has a 0.23mm needle nozzle setup. It also has a MAC valve on the bottom here. So that allows you to over thin your paint, and you can wind it in to reduce the pressure coming out of the airbrush, and it doesn't change the pressure from the compressor. So you're only adjusting it within the front of this airbrush, allowing you to get even finer detail. So what are the benefits of spending so much more on an airbrush? Well, it makes doing your tasks nice and easy. You can get really fine detail out of the Micron, which you'd want to hope when you're spending that much money on an airbrush. But essentially it still comes down to the operator. So if you're new to airbrushing, and this is what I recommend to a lot of my students, is that you're probably not going to get the performance straight out of the bat with one of the Microns. I suppose it's almost like hopping into a Formula 1 car when you've only ever driven a standard road car. So if you're wanting to do artwork sort of like this, you know, where there's a lot more detail in the work, you're working on, say, automotive substrates or aluminium composite panel like what I just showed you with the Frankenstein, or you want to do things like these eyelashes. These are all done using the Micron CMSB, actually, the side feed version, and they were done freehand. Then, you know, the Micron might be for you, and you may want to spend the extra dollars. Now let's take a look at the mid-range Iwata Eclipse, the HPCS. This one has a 0.35mm needle nozzle setup. And this guy is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated brushes in the Iwata family. It allows for real broad spray, but you can also get extremely fine detail. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the Micron has. So once you get used to this guy and you get your paint mix right and your air pressure settings and everything, this will be just a great all-round brush. And for the price, you just can't go wrong. The Eclipse will also give you quick coverage. And as I've just shown you, nice fine detail if you need it as well. As I mentioned, this is an all-round brush, can be used for automotive, finer detail work as well once it's dialed in with the paint and PSI ratio. But if you're just starting out with the airbrush and you're not sure what to get, this is always my go-to. And lastly, take a look at the cheaper brush. This also has a 0.35mm needle nozzle setup. This one in particular has the smaller cup, but like I said, you'll find these on the internet in all different variations. Now, being the cheapest, it'll still work for you, as in you can still shade from a distance. You can still get some sort of detail out of it. get some lines. It is still a double action brush, and keep in mind that all the ones that I've shown you today have been double action. But if you're an absolute beginner, this may take a little bit of practice to be able to make it perform like this. Got to keep in mind I've been airbrushing for more than 20 years. I can use a brush that is not performing at 100% and still pull out some sort of a line, or keep some sort of consistency with a stroke. But you can see it's probably tip drying a little bit now, but the biggest thing is you can really feel the lack of quality in something like this. However, that said, it still does have a purpose. And in my opinion, something like this is still better for someone to purchase. Have a go at airbrushing if they just need it for blocking in a background, or if they want to just undercoat some miniatures, something simple like that, or base up a RC model, then this may do. You could still do basic blends, but over time, I don't know how long it's going to last, whether or not you can use solvents through it, all that sort of stuff. So if you are serious about airbrushing, then I'd probably look at going up to something like the Eclipse, or even in the Iwata family. There is also something like this, which is the Revolution. So this one here is the 0.5 version. You can now get the HPCR in a 0.3, which is cool. So these are a great brush too, and I think at the moment these are around the 200 mark, so about $50 Australian cheaper than the Eclipse. So all in all, like going through and showing you a few basic tests using all three of these brushes, why would you spend more versus less? Well, I think it just comes down to what essentially you want to do with the airbrush. If you've been airbrushing for quite some time and you've got your basic double action control dialed in, and you want to step your airbrushing up a little bit and go to that next level and be able to achieve finer detail easier, then the Micron, something like this would be perfect for you. So if you're just starting out, you've just finished maybe an introductory airbrushing course and you want to get into it, you want to do stuff like all-round airbrushing, canvases, you want to do some fine detail work, but you need that broad spray as well, then I'd recommend to go for the Eclipse. And that's going to be a brush that'll stay in your arsenal for years and years to come. On the other hand, if you are just absolutely new to airbrushing and you're probably not going to take a course, you just want to use it for some backgrounds, maybe undercoating miniatures, just doing real basic shading, not so much detailed work, well then something like this will get you up and going, and then you can always decide to upgrade or take a class and take it a bit more seriously later, but at least it's going to get you into airbrushing. After all, that's a win in itself. So at least you can give it a go, see if you like it, and then even if you don't like it, 20-30 bucks, it's not the end of the world. However, if you do like it, then you may wish to upgrade to one of these other models. So another thing that I just want to go over is that the airbrushes that I focused on today were predominantly from the Iwata range. Obviously there are many amazing airbrushing brands. Iwata is not the only one, so have a look around. The other tip that I suggest to all my students is pick up the airbrush if you can and hold it in your hand. Make sure that it's comfortable. You may prefer a siphon feed versus a gravity. If you want to know a little bit more about that, I have a video discussing both models. I'll link that up in the description below, as well as some other handy videos. So I hope this video has somehow helped you make up your mind which airbrush is best for you. If you have any more specific questions, then leave those in the comments below. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.